Hey, what's up? I'm Angie. This is New Path Tarot. We're going to do a pick a card reading today. I'm going to show you guys 3 different piles. But here's the fun part, is that it's not really a divination reading per se. I'm using the Mediumship training deck. And basically by doing this reading, whichever one you're drawn to, we will be going over one of the skills that is attributed to that pile, the card that you're going to be using to select. So we're enhancing our mediumship abilities today in this video. And as I was talking to one of my friends, I said I'm just kind of feeling drawn to doing more teaching lately than divination readings, because I've been doing a lot of readings in person and I'm just kind of getting burnt out on readings. Not that I want to stop doing them in person, but I mean on the channel, like I just want to do more teaching stuff. And by me teaching, I'm learning too, if I didn't already know, or at least I'm refreshing or reminding myself. And that's what I was telling her too. I'm like, I don't think that my videos are going to be telling you anything you don't already know, but it's going to maybe be a refresher for you. So anyways, here's your first pile. It's the card Soul Guidance. Okay, so if you're feeling drawn to whatever messages are contained in Soul Guidance, because I am going to go beyond what the card actually says if I get messages too. Okay, creative expression. Now here's what's cool about your pile if you're going to pick this one, is that both creative expression and the medium's toolbox came out. They were not together in the deck, but even way cooler is partnership card, the medium's toolbox. So when these two came out, like they were sticking out, and I picked one, I picked the creative expression, and then I picked the medium toolbox, and I was just like, whoa, that's cool. So that's for pile 2, is creative expression is your main card. Okay, in pile 3, I'm really glad this one came out, the Rose Meditation, because I kind of wanted to know what it was all about. So I did a little preview, I looked at it, and it looks really cool. Even if you pick 1 and 2, I think pile 3 would be a really good exercise for you guys to just listen in on and check it out. So I would suggest pick 3 and then 1 and 2 also. If you're feeling drawn to one of those more than the other, otherwise all 3 of them, you're going to learn some stuff today. All right, so let's start with pile 1, Soul Guidance. So what I'm going to do, pile 1, is I'm going to read you what the card itself says, and then I already previewed it, and then I was getting like stuff to tell you guys too about how this will work a step beyond what is said on here, and also like how it will work practically in your day-to-day life. Okay, so making time for activities that contribute to your spiritual growth and psychic development is not a sign of selfishness. It's more of a necessity. By doing so, it will make you a better medium and have a major impact on your overall well-being and spiritual vitality. Spending time to focus on your soul's needs enables you to nurture yourself and expand your spiritual boundaries. Therefore, for 1 week, allow this card to encourage you to do things that are uncharacteristic for you. In other words, do things that you never normally do. During this time, surrender and trust in your intuitive psychic abilities completely. If you feel, and it has, when I'm emphasizing a word, it's because it's in italics. If you feel that you've always wanted to have lunch with someone at work, but never made the effort, then make this week the time to ask. If you feel drawn to call a relative whom you've not spoken to in a long time, then make the call. If you feel inspired to learn something new, then take a class or workshop. Trust and follow your gut, and use all your psychic senses. After doing this for 1 week, don't forget to journal your new discoveries or revelations that have resulted by following your inner guidance. Sometimes when you follow the prompting of your soul, it leads to unexpected opportunities. This amazing exercise will teach you how the flow of intuition runs through you and works for you. So why not start living intuitively and less analytically? So this is a good stage, I guess you'd say, or step to get into it if you're not already. But I like how it took it a step above and said, gives you a time frame to work within. 1 week. where when something comes to you, follow up on it instead of pushing it to the side. So here's some examples. You're going about your day, randomly the thought of somebody who you haven't talked to in 5 years pops up, and you're like, maybe I wonder how they're doing. Maybe I should check in on them. But then you go, whatever. And then you don't. Well, this is saying this week, actually follow through and send a text or make a phone call or whatever. Like, they pop in your head for a reason. So follow up. And at a very simplistic level, the reason why people pop in your head is usually because Spirit's trying to nudge you to continue a connection with somebody. Like, even if you had a really close connection and then some time has faded and you've gotten busy, they've gotten busy, they have kids now, you don't, or, whatever your story is, and you're just kind of like fall out of sync with people, it's not a bad idea to just check in every now and then and say, hey, anything new with you? Sometimes you find out nothing's new with them and they're literally in the same place they've always been. But let me give you an example of somebody that was from Cleveland, which is where I grew up. And we lost contact with each other. We were actually roommates when I was 19. And we haven't talked since I was 19. But then through the world of Facebook, I friended one of my ex-boyfriends from when I was 19, and then I saw that they were friends, and I was like, oh my God, Stephanie, I haven't talked to you since forever. She's got like 1 million kids. I've got like 1 million kids. We're catching up and everything. And she went through a really rough patch in her life in her 20s, and I went through my stuff. So we kind of compared notes and like all this sort of thing. Come to find out, like, we rekindled our friendship, and it was like, what? Which for many years, I would think about her every now and then, but I actually had no way to get a hold of her because I didn't have her phone number anymore. Even if I did, she probably changed her number. Like, you fall out of contact with people. Current days, that doesn't happen anymore. As long as somebody's on social media, you know more about their personal life than you would get even from a phone call. But that doesn't mean it's not important to make the actual, connection of a impersonal, I'm trying to say impersonal, but you know what I mean, like actual talking one-on-one and not just on technology. Actually picking up the phone and having a conversation, even though she's in a different state, and we can still talk on the phone, So one of my friends, one of my very, very close friends, passed recently, last month, and one of the conversations we had recently-ish was that she was really upset about somebody who she was really close to in the past. Every time she tries to reach out to her, she would kind of like blow her off or whatever, like, oh, because she didn't have kids, my friend didn't, but the other person did, and she'd always be like, oh, why don't we hang out, whatever. And it never worked out because the other mom was like always busy with her kids' school activities and everything. And I feel sad because all she wanted was to have like these connections with these people, knowing that she was on borrowed time and she wanted to, but you can't like make somebody else have that. So if you're watching this, I'm just really trying to impress to you how important relationships are. We get so caught up in our stuff and we just live our routine, and we forget that having friendships is a really important part of our lives. It's really like our relationships with each other are really the only thing that actually matters in this lifetime. Not our cars, not our houses, not the drama, not politics, the environment, because that makes sense that we need to sustain our earth, and our relationships with each other, because that's the only thing that really matters, at least from my perspective. So that's that. If somebody pops in your head, follow up, okay? Let's see. Let me tell you how this works. I'm going to go a step beyond. Okay, I had to go to the bathroom. I was here at work. I was waiting on a call back from a doctor's office. So I was like waiting. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go to the bathroom. And of course, it's always characteristic that they're going to call you when you walk away from your phone, right? So I was in the kitchen making a sandwich, and it was like this loud, I guess, I don't know how to explain it, intrusive thought said, they're calling you right now. So I literally dropped what I was doing, ran in here, grabbed my phone. Sure enough, it was like ringing, because this doctor's office is really annoying, where you always have to leave a message with them. So if they call you, you have to take that call, or else you're never going to talk to them. So I got the call because it was like as if somebody were tapping you on your shoulder or yelling, "Hey, your phone's ringing." It was that intrusive. So I get that kind of stuff all the time. Like, it's weird. Like, certain clients that I have really good boundaries where I don't take on their stuff and I don't take their stories with me. But like, some readers have to learn that still. They're like, they do a reading for somebody and then they're like keeping on to their, like feeling bad for them, or like, worrying about them or whatever it might be. And I already got enough stuff on my plate, so I can't be worrying about other people's stuff too. But like, they'll just pop in my head, and then sure enough, that very day they'll get a reading, and I'm like, I literally just thought about you today. Hadn't had a reading for weeks or months, and then boom, they get a reading. So it kind of is like the chicken or the egg, like which one comes first, as far as, did I no, it's probably them thinking that they need a reading with me, and then I got the heads up that it was going to happen. That's probably the order of it. Let's see here. But yeah, what this is basically telling you is, sometimes people, it says, remember, it's not a sign of selfishness. Because here's what it is, right? You're living your life and you're making choices. Are you making choices for yourself, or are you making choices based on other people? And so they're giving you permission to make choices that are best for you, and not based on other people's opinions of what's best for you, because they might have biases. You need to form your own inner wisdom to make your decisions. Right before COVID, I decided to fully commit to working as a psychic full time. And it just so happened that, had I not done that, because before I was doing like guest readings, which is like, you're not committed to it, you're just kind of like dabbling in it. And had I not committed, when the store closed and we went into lockdown, I would not have been able to continue doing readings, because I would have been just like off the schedule. So because I had committed right before we went on lockdown, I was able to continue doing readings during lockdown, and it was really, really helpful. So it was weird though, because prior to me making that decision, I was really weighing it. I was like, okay, should I, shouldn't I? I don't necessarily pull cards about stuff. I usually just rely on my psychic skills without tools. But I didn't make the decision. I kept putting it off until it felt right, and I was still weighing options. And then one day, literally, I woke up and I went, I'm committing. I'm doing this. This is happening. And I wrote the owner. I said, I'm doing this. They were like, yay, finally, because they kept bugging me about it. Like, they were like, we really want you to work here. And I'm like, I know, but I can't commit. I have commitment issues with this. Whatever. And then I, decided that I was going to do so. And I kept saying during lockdown, like, oh my God, thank God I did that. Like, had I not, I'd be like, what am I going to do? Because all the events stopped happening. All the places closed down and weren't doing readings. Like, it was like a big deal, So that's what I'm saying is, had I listened to other people, I had a few people telling me, oh, don't do that, do this instead. Oh, don't do those things, do these things, And it's like, you really, really, really can't rely on logic. You have to rely on your intuition, and don't make decisions until you have the intuition to back it up, because it might not be the right time just yet. Don't be pressured. If somebody's telling you, do this, do this, do this, and you're just like, I don't feel it. Like, I can't. Sorry. You have to, like, it's okay to say no. You have to give yourself permission to be able to say no to people and not be apologetic for it, Be like, I have weighed my options and I have decided this is not the best choice for me. Sorry. But sorry, not sorry, Okay. What else is it saying about? If you feel inspired to learn something new, then take a class or workshop. Okay. unexpected opportunities. Yeah, the biggest thing about the last part of it is talking about being in the flow, because that's what's going to happen, right? So you make a decision based on intuition, then that puts you on your alignment path. And then that's going to happen more and more. You're going to have decisions to make. Each and every single one that you do, that you're in alignment with intuition, it's going to be like, I don't really know how to explain what being in the flow is like if you don't know what it is, or if you've never experienced it. Being in the flow feels amazing. It's like you're on cloud 9 spiritually. You're like, it's almost like too good to be true, and you like pinch yourself and you're like, how did I stumble upon this? Well, you didn't really stumble, you just made a good choice, and that put you on alignment, and then you just make better choices. I'm not going to say it's a bed of roses. It's sometimes, you have issues to work through, because of other people, or real life stuff bothers you, messes with you, whatever. You have to deal with things, but all in all, you're going to be in a place where things are going to flow for you. And that means relationships, prosperity, because what's going to happen is you're going to choose against relationships that are not intuitively aligned. You're going to have your intuition about a relationship, and you're going to know who you need to cut, who you need to keep. You'll know if you need to bring new people in. You'll know when you meet somebody if they're good vibes or not. You'll know, even family members, sometimes you'll need to cut certain ones. You'll know who to not tell your business to at work or whatever in your personal life. You'll know how to pick lawyers if you need to. You'll feel it. You'll know how to pick which doctor's office. Like, it's just weird little things that you might not think. The little decisions. And let me give you just like another really weird example. Like, okay, so you have a doctor's office that calls you and wants to make an appointment, and they're like, hey, we're making an appointment, when are you available? And you're like, I don't know. And so, you open your calendar, and they're like, well, what about on this day? And you don't have anything on your calendar, but let's say in a weird way, you just, something's telling you, no, not that day, don't do it that day. So you're like, what else do you have next week or whatever? And then they're like, okay, what about this? You kind of like feel it, and you're like, yeah, that sounds good. So you make the appointment that day. Sure enough, on the day you said no to the appointment, something comes up that you're like, oh, thank God I didn't make that appointment. I would have had to reschedule it. Weird stuff like that you just can't. Intuition is not, it's nonsensical. I promise you cannot explain to other people. They won't get it unless they're the same way. And you'll know when two people speak the same intuitive language, because they'll say things like, I just wasn't feeling like I should have done that, or whatever, but there's no reason why. They just don't feel it, and then they follow that. For the next week, make every decision and choice based on how it feels. If it feels like a yes, if it feels like a no, if it feels like a maybe, honor your maybes, and don't make them be yeses and nos prematurely. Make sure you are making your yeses and nos with conviction, and you feel good about it. Like you feel released after you make that decision. Like, okay, I know I made the best decision. Or sometimes you're like, I'm just going to trust that was the best decision, but I used my intuition, so therefore I'm going to go with that. Okay, so that's it for you guys, pile 1. I'm going to move on to 2. So if you want to hear what I say there also, and I do suggest you watch 3. I don't know what I'm going to say yet, but it's going to be good. I'll just put it that way. I'm trusting my intuition that it's going to be good. Yay. Okay, pile 2. So you guys picked creative expression and the medium's toolbox. And so I'm going to read to you creative expression. First, creativity is not only a way of expressing your personality and spirit to the outside world, it is also a great way of disconnecting your analytical mind so you can reconnect with the creative, expressive, and intuitive side of your brain. As children, we started our lives by freely using the more creative right side of our brain. As we got older, as a result of schooling and societal conditioning, there was a tendency to pull away from our right side and rely more on the intellectual left side of our brain. Intuition floats on the edge of creativity. So try doing something creative, such as taking a class where you can practice sketching, drawing, writing, painting, coloring, making pottery, or whatever works for you. Being creative can be quite meditative in its own. So as you develop your psychic and mediumship potential, it can help you train yourself to let go of logic and trust the information you're receiving, whether it's psychic information or messages from spirit. Every psychic and medium uses the vast imaginative nature of the right brain to achieve a higher altered state. This is what is known as the artist's mind. This is the special place where communication is pure and authentic. You don't need to have any artistic ability to practice with creative methods and tools. Just making the effort and having fun will definitely help to stretch your spiritual abilities further than you can imagine. So what they're saying is use creativity as a means to get into a meditative state. So it's not about the creativity. It's not what you might think. It's not about doing whatever you do. It's about switching to the right side of your brain. And having said that, they didn't talk about this, but automatic writing is a good way to do that too, because in order to do automatic writing, you have to be in your right side brain. Now, having said that, a lot of times when people are artists, they'll even say, I mean, I heard it a million times from people who come in here who are artists and do paintings and stuff. They'll say that they channel their work. Like, it's not them. They're like, that's not coming from me. I get into like a meditative state and then it just kind of happens. So I'm sure you've heard of that or maybe even connected with that before. So it's saying do this. Now with pile 1, there was a time frame of a week. So sometime in this next week, in fact, a little bit each day would be a good idea to do something like this. Now, what would be helpful for you guys probably is to get a journal that doesn't have only pages that are like lines, but also like blank pages. So it may be lines on one side, blank on the other. And let me show you something. My I Ching book is a good example for it. Okay, so here's a book. And he did artwork of what he's trying to portray the energy of the hexagram here. But then here, he has calligraphy for the hexagram. And then he has words that go with it as well. So that's exactly what I'm talking about. This is a perfect example. Words on one side, picture on the other, demonstrating the words, the essence of the words. Okay, so let me read the medium's toolbox. As a medium, you have access to the most amazing set of tools, namely the medium's toolbox. Spirit accesses this resource by providing information, signs, symbols, and inspiration to enable you to become a more evidential medium. As the saying goes, spirit never wastes a thought. Your toolbox is continuously being loaded with the knowledge you acquire throughout your life, whether it's part of your education, life experiences, or poignant life lessons. The more you continue to add to your toolbox, which is unique to you, the greater the references that spirit can use to help you validate and provide evidential messages in communication. For example, if you're a doctor or medical practitioner who's immersed your life in the study of medicine, it is more likely that your toolbox will be packed full of medical references. This allows the medium to have a unique opportunity to access medical evidence when working with a spirit. To keep your toolbox up to date, it's important to feed it with new information and experiences. Make time every day to add to it. Learn something new or experience something for the first time. It could be time to take up painting or start learning a new language. By becoming more aware of your surroundings and the people around you, You'll fill your toolbox with new impressions. You'll also find Spirit will have a great wealth of information to access and enhance your communication. Let me give you a few examples that are coming to me about this one. Okay, so regarding your toolbox and your life experiences, like let's say I'll have a client who is asking a question, and then I'll just be reminded of something. So then I'll tell them what came into my head that I got reminded of. And I'll be like, for some reason, when you were talking about that or when you asked about that, I got reminded of this thing that happened to me or that I know about. And then 9 times out of 10, they'll say, holy crap, that's the exact situation. And I'm like, really? So it's like, it's like it says, Spirit never wastes a thought. That's kind of what I'm talking about, is that everything that you have experienced in this lifetime can and will be used when you are doing intuitive work, especially when mediumship. Because remember what mediumship is. Sure, you can be a medium for yourself all day, but this is kind of implying that you're going to be using this when interacting with other people. So your life experiences connecting with other people, and you'll be brought into the path of people who are just, for some reason, you're connected in shared experiences or something. There's a reason why you came in today, like there's a reason why I just happened to be covering for somebody and I'm here when I wasn't meant to be. And you came to see that person, but they're out today. And then you come in and I'm like, I know all about that. And the other person might not have. Or my style of reading is very specific and the other reader has a different style of reading, and they might not have been able to pick up on your thing or been able to read it at like a practical kind of level. So every reader is different, and therefore you are going to be aligned with people who are going to benefit from your style. Interesting about the whole doctor and medical practitioner thing, because there's medical mediums who can like intuitively know what's wrong with you physically, and if you're a medical professional to begin with, you're going to have a much better vocabulary and knowledge of that kind of stuff to be able to know what's going on. I mean, you might even heard of like doctors who literally just have intuition about things, and there's like a skill to it, like an intuitive skill to it. What else? Okay, so here's one that's cool. Like when it says start learning a new language, it reminded me of this thing. So I'm collaborating on a deck with somebody, and when we were talking about one of the card designs, I told her the essence of the card without any kind of description of what it would look like visually. I just said like basically the description of the card. So she came back to me with the design of it, and it was very Japanese inspired. And I was like, oh, that's really weird, because I lived in Japan for a year, and the exact scene that she drew, I've been there, and I have actual pictures of that place. So I was like, okay, this is weird. So I don't know how that ended up happening, whether she picked up on me having been there or whether Spirit just did that, or I don't know, but it was creepy in a good way, Spirit likes messing with people too. But no, I mean, it was a really pretty card, and it perfectly summed up what I was saying. So it was perfect, but also weird for me. Had I never lived in Japan, I probably would have been like, oh, that's cool. But it was just more like personal because of that. Okay, so what else? This is basically like saying, keep learning. Don't ever like stop. Don't ever stop enhancing your spiritual gifts. Like, for example, like I mentioned, automatic writing. Like, automatic writing doesn't just start happening like professionally or something. You have to work on it. You have to practice it. You have to be in the flow. You have to be in the right mind, all those sort of things. So it's saying, why don't you take a spiritual skill that you want to improve and literally start practicing it and working on it in this next week, and take it from there and see how far it'll go, and it'll probably turn into something as long as you stay dedicated to it. Okay, so that's it for you guys, pile 2. I'm going to move on to pile 3. I highly suggest you check this one out because it sounds cool to me. But otherwise, I'll see you guys another time. Bye. Pile 3, the Rose Meditation. All right, you ready for this? This is cool. When you're developing your psychic and mediumistic, I guess that's a word now, right? When you're developing your psychic and mediumistic potential, it's essential to experiment with different practices and techniques, such as this special rose meditation, which can help your spiritual abilities to grow and evolve. This will assist you in strengthening the loving bridge across both realms. Try this intuitive rose meditation with a friend. Have your friend tell you the name of someone living that they know who is unknown to you, so you remain objective. Now, picture a rose in the area of your third eye, whichever color you wish, and then softly concentrate on the person's name you were given. Take your time. Let the symbol of the rose evolve in your mind's eye. If the rose is opening, it could mean the person is happy, secure, and content. If it's wilting, then it's possible that the individual is going through an emotional time or suffering ill health. If you notice a separate stem coming from the rose, this could suggest the person is taking a different path. Every interpretation will be different. Let your own intuitive awareness interpret what the rose means to you. Now explain what you've received to your friend so they can validate the information. You can also use this form of meditation when you're receiving a symbol, picture, or even a word, either on a psychic or mediumistic level. The rose meditation gives you the opportunity to take a moment and hear the story. Partnership cards are clairvoyance and symbols. Okay, so when I read that, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to totally try this. But I don't have anybody to practice on right now. So here's the thing. Here's the thing about evidential mediumship is you need to validate it. So first you want to make sure that the information you have is correct. That way, the messages that come following that are to be trusted, because otherwise, if you don't even know for sure that you have the right energy, then how do you know that the messages are in fact truthful, So here's the thing that came to me about this rose meditation thing about it. I have been in contact with another reader. We did a trade for each other, a trade reading, and she explained to me how her intuition works, and it was the most mind-boggling, intriguing thing I've ever heard in my life. So this is what she said. In her mind, she can see all the different outcomes that are possible. So if you ask her a question, she literally sits there, and let's say she can see 7 different outcomes in front of her. And so then she narrows down which one is the best one, and then she can say why it ended up happening that way. So like what choices were made to ensure that that is the one that actually ends up being the outcome, and what to avoid with the other ones to ensure that those other ones don't end up happening. And so, for example, she can say, well, if you do this one, you're going to be happier. I see you really, really happy. You're smiling, and you just feel really content. This other path, I see you happy and it's still successful, but you're just not as happy. So do this one. The difference between these two is this. So do this thing, and that's how I see you. You're just going to be so much happier. And then she was explaining to me about certain colors and certain objects, like jewelry, can actually have a subconscious effect on things. So it's just like reminders. I've heard that before, but it was really cool to hear how she processes things. She can literally see the different outcomes. So clearly, once she told me about that, I was like, oh my God, I got to try this. Like, I want to know how to do that too. So then I realized my readings following that, I actually kind of already have been doing that, but not so visually. It's more a feeling thing. So like you can say, I don't know if I should do this, this, or this. And then I'll say, okay, the first one feels really good energetically. The second one's like, okay, but it's not the best one. The third one's no way. Don't even go there. Like, no. And that's just the energy of them. I do that with my own decisions too, but I can help other people kind of figure that out as well. I don't necessarily see you're going to be happy on the other side of it, but it's kind of implied that my kind of reading of it is more the beginning of it. It's like the beginning stages of it. This one feels good to go with, not so much because it's going to result in a certain outcome. So now I kind of think like if I were to combine both, then I'd get more specific information, like not just go with the first one, but here's exactly how to do so. You have 3 different ways of going about this. Do this one, not that one, and definitely not that one, you know. And the last thing it was talking about with the whole, if you're receiving a
click to answer.
Jeez, scared me. Receiving a symbol, picture, or a word, that will happen in a reading. Like, I can't even tell you how many times somebody will be like, is this going to happen? And then it'll just pop in my head and I'll say yes. Like, how would I know? I have no idea, but my intuition said yes, so I'm like, yes. And then they'll be like, oh, how long until this thing happens? And then I'm like, I literally say in my head, I'm like, I don't know. How am I supposed to know that? And then it'll be like 3 weeks. And I'm like, 3 weeks. Okay, cool. We're good. 3 weeks. How do you know? I don't know. It just popped in my head. That's what I'm saying. 3 weeks. Let me know. I want to know. Like, tell me, did it happen in 3 weeks or not? I would love to know the answer to that. Follow up with me. And I get people who do. They follow up. Like, they wouldn't come back if I was inaccurate, right? Like, you're not going to go back to a reader who gives you information that doesn't pan out. So if I tell you 3 weeks and then 3 weeks happens and the event happens, then you're going to come back and say, okay, what's next? You know? So I try to teach that. I don't like people being dependent on me for their life. You know, I want them to then take the reins and go about it. But then make sure, it's good to get a reading to make sure you're not being biased and everything. So it's more just like confirmation as opposed to telling you information you didn't have access to yourself. We all should be using our psychic gifts. If we were all using our psychic gifts, then the whole world would be in flow as opposed to just like discord as it is right now. Some people are saying we're in the 5D right now, and I'm like, that would be great. Like, individuals are in the 5D, yes, but the earth as a whole, the collective, is not on a 5D. You know this because there's fear and people not getting along, basically, violence and corruption and all that. None of that is 5D. So we're here to help try to fix it, but it seems like it's taking a long time, and it's taking longer than it was planned on, should have been. Like, by now, we should have already been way past a lot of this stuff. But hey, here we are, still trying to fix it. So, symbols, pictures, words, putting yourself in that right brain mind frame in order to get that. So let's say, because this is linked in with pile 2 as far as what I'm saying right now. Let's say you have a piece of paper before you, have a pen in your hand, and you're like, hey, let me just sit here, and then the first thing that pops in your head, you write it down or you draw it out. Let's say instead of the rose in your mind, you draw the rose if you're artistic, and then you can give that to people. Because I know a medium who actually draws the person who has passed over. Instead of explaining them, like they look like this, they look like that, they draw like a picture of them, and then they hand it to you as part of your reading. So like, let's say the rose meditation, you draw out the rose and you say, okay, the person that I'm thinking of, you write their name at the top, and then you're like drawing out the rose, and then you go, and you can write the words on it. You can be like, is this person, write it as is, but you're like, happy, content, peaceful, good life, like you can write all that, and the rose looks all happy. Or you can write like, going through a hard time, blah, 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 blah. But it's like whatever comes to you and your interpretation of the rose. All right, that's it for you guys. I hope you liked that. I would say at least once in the next week, try to apply this exercise and, try to work on this skill of the rose, because I think it's cool. I want to try it out. I'll let you know how it goes if I end up finding somebody to practice on. But until next time, have a great day, you guys, and Let's fix this planet, right? I feel like Captain Planet right now from my childhood. We're not going to go there. Bye.